Get your hands out where I can see them.
I am doing exactly what you asked.
It was a Tuesday morning in late September, the kind of morning that feels ordinary in every possible way. The air was cool, the streets in Maplewood Heights were quiet, and Darius Coleman was running exactly 4 minutes ahead of schedule. He had been awake since 5:15. He had answered 2 emails before 6. He had reviewed a structural analysis report over coffee, set it aside, grabbed his laptop bag, and walked out the front door of the house he had owned for 11 years. Darius Coleman was 43 years old. He held a master's degree in civil engineering from Georgia Tech and a second certification in infrastructure systems from MIT. He was the lead structural engineer for the Maplewood Heights Municipal Bridge Renovation Project, a $37 million federally funded contract that had been awarded to his firm 8 months earlier. He drove a dark blue Audi sedan. He dressed well without excess. He was quiet, precise, and entirely unremarkable on any Tuesday morning in his own neighborhood. He turned onto Creston Avenue, the main road that connected his residential block to the downtown district. He had driven this exact route every working day for 6 years. He was 2 minutes from the project site when he saw the lights, blue and red, strobing in the rearview mirror. He had not run a stop sign. He had not exceeded the posted speed limit. He checked his mirrors again, confirmed the cruiser was behind him, and pulled to the right side of the road the way he had been taught to do. He placed both hands on the steering wheel. He waited. The officer who approached Darius Coleman's vehicle that morning was Sergeant Dale Corbin of the Maplewood Heights Police Department. Corbin had been with the department for 14 years. He was broad-shouldered, deliberate in his movements, and he walked to the driver's side window with the unhurried confidence of a man who was not concerned about being questioned. He stood at the window for a full 3 seconds before saying anything. "Step out of the vehicle." Darius did not move immediately. "Can I ask why I was stopped, officer?" "I said step out of the vehicle." Darius complied. He stepped out slowly, kept his hands visible, and stood beside the open door. He was wearing a collared shirt and a lanyard around his neck with a municipal contractor ID badge. None of it seemed to register. "Where are you coming from?" "My home. I live on Denholm Street, about a quarter-mile back." "You live there?" It was not a question. The inflection made it something else entirely. "Yes, sir." 11 years. Corbin looked at the car. He looked at Darius. He looked at the laptop bag visible through the rear window. He asked Darius for his license and registration, took them back to his cruiser, and sat there for 9 minutes. Darius stood on the sidewalk. 3 cars passed. A woman walking a retriever crossed to the opposite sidewalk without looking at either of them. A delivery driver slowed slightly, then accelerated. When Corbin returned, he handed back the documents and told Darius he was suspected of casing properties in the area. There had been, he said, a series of residential break-ins over the past several weeks. Darius matched a description. Darius asked what the description was. Corbin said it was an ongoing investigation and that Darius should remain where he was. Then he got back in his cruiser, got back on his radio, and called for a second unit. What Corbin did not know, and did not bother to find out, was that the Maplewood Heights Police Department had received a security briefing 7 weeks earlier about the federal contractor team working on the Creston Avenue Bridge corridor. That briefing had included photographs, names, and vehicle descriptions of every project lead, including Darius Coleman, whose Audi sedan had been logged in the department's contractor database. The information was sitting inside the same dispatch system Corbin had just used to run Darius's plates. He had either not looked, or not looked long enough, or decided that what he already believed was more useful than what the database said. The second unit arrived in under 4 minutes. Officer Raymond Pruitt stepped out and immediately positioned himself on the passenger side of Darius's vehicle. 2 officers, 1 civilian, standing on a public street in the middle of a Tuesday morning. A third car slowed at the intersection ahead and stopped, the driver's window rolling down slightly. Corbin returned to where Darius was standing and told him they were going to conduct a search of his vehicle. Darius asked if he was being detained. Corbin said yes. Darius asked on what grounds. Corbin said reasonable suspicion of involvement in a series of burglaries. Darius said he wanted to call his attorney. Corbin said he could do that after the search. Darius did not raise his voice. He did not move. He stood with both hands visible and watched as Pruitt opened the rear door of his Audi and began going through his laptop bag. Inside that bag were engineering documents, infrastructure schematics, A federal project binder stamped with the seal of the United States Department of Transportation. A secondary hard drive labeled Project Archive, Creston Avenue Corridor. A business card holder containing 47 cards, each printed with Darius's name, title, and the logo of his firm. None of it stopped the search. None of it prompted either officer to pause. The third car at the intersection had not moved. A second vehicle had now stopped behind it. Someone was holding a phone. Corbin found nothing in the vehicle. No stolen property, no contraband, nothing that justified what had already occurred. He stood at the rear of the Audi with his hands on his hips and told Darius that he was free to go, but that the area was under active surveillance, and he should expect further contact if he was seen in the area again. The phrasing was deliberate. The meaning was unmistakable. Darius looked at him for a moment. Then he said, quietly and without theater, "I'm the lead engineer on the bridge project 2 blocks from here. I have a federal contractor clearance, a Department of Transportation ID, and a signed municipal contract with this city. My name is in your department system. You have been standing on a public street detaining a federal contractor for 31 minutes without cause." Corbin stared at him. "I'm going to be late for my site meeting now," Darius said. He picked up his bag from the sidewalk where Pruitt had left it, got back into his car, and drove away. Neither officer said anything. The person holding the phone at the intersection had been recording for 22 minutes. Her name was Patricia Osei. She was a schoolteacher who lived 4 blocks away and had been on her way to pick up a colleague when she saw the cruiser lights and slowed. She had filmed the entire encounter from inside her car, stabilized against her dashboard. The video was 4 minutes and 48 seconds when she uploaded it that evening. It showed a black man in professional attire standing calmly on a sidewalk while 2 officers searched his vehicle. It showed one of those officers removing documents, flipping through them, and placing them back without comment. It showed the body language of both officers throughout. It showed exactly what it was. By the next morning, the video had 400,000 views. By noon, it had crossed 2 million. By the time Darius Coleman arrived at the project site on Wednesday, his phone had received calls from 3 journalists, a civil rights attorney named Vivian Okafor, and the regional director of the Department of Transportation. Sergeant Dale Corbin was placed on administrative desk duty that afternoon. The department released a statement saying they were aware of the video and were conducting an internal review. The statement used the word professional 5 times. It did not use the word wrong once. That restraint would cost them. Vivian Okafor filed a formal civil rights complaint on behalf of Darius Coleman within 72 hours of the encounter. She was not new to this. She had litigated 4 cases against municipal police departments in the previous 8 years, 2 of which had resulted in federal consent decrees. She was meticulous, she was patient, and she had already obtained a copy of the department's contractor notification database through a public records request before Corbin's desk reassignment had even been formally processed. What that database showed was not ambiguous. Darius Coleman's name, photograph, vehicle description, and federal contractor identification number had been entered into the system on August 14th, 7 weeks before the stop. The entry had been logged by the department's liaison officer following a briefing that 14 members of the department had attended. Sergeant Dale Corbin's name was on the attendance record for that briefing. He had been in the room. He had been told. He had stopped Darius Coleman anyway. Okafor added a second claim to the complaint, deliberate racial profiling with documented prior knowledge. The legal exposure for the department shifted overnight from a procedural violation into something far more serious. The department's internal review, which had been announced as thorough and independent, was completed in 11 days. It concluded that Corbin had acted within departmental guidelines and that no misconduct had occurred. The review made no mention of the contractor database. It made no mention of the August briefing. It made no mention of the attendance record bearing Corbin's name. Okafor received a copy of that review and read it twice. Then she filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Northern District. The complaint was 63 pages. Exhibits through are included the contractor database entry, the briefing attendance sheet, the video footage, the department's public statement, the internal review document, and a statistical analysis of traffic stops conducted by Sergeant Dale Corbin over the previous 4 years. That analysis had been prepared by an independent research firm and showed that of the 112 stops Corbin had made involving black male drivers, Only 9 had resulted in any citation or charge. The remaining 103 had ended with no finding of wrongdoing. The pattern was not subtle. It was a record. Federal investigators from the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice opened a parallel inquiry 6 weeks after the lawsuit was filed. They subpoenaed records from the department going back 5 years. They interviewed 11 of Darius Coleman's colleagues who had worked on the Creston Avenue project and had driven through the same corridor during the same period. 7 of them were black. 6 of those 7 reported being stopped at least once. None of the for white engineers on the project had been stopped at all. Corbin's attorney issued a statement calling the lawsuit politically motivated and asserting that his client had acted in good faith based on available information. The statement did not address the briefing. It did not address the database. It did not address the statistical analysis. It offered no explanation that the available evidence could not immediately contradict. The trial began on a Monday in March. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Inquiry, which had been running parallel to the trial, formally expanded its scope to include the department's entire traffic enforcement division. The municipality did not appeal the verdict. The city council voted 12-1 to establish an independent civilian oversight board for the police department within 30 days of the judgment. The one dissenting vote came from a council member who had publicly supported Corbin's initial account of the stop. That council member did not seek re-election. Darius Coleman returned to the Creston Avenue Bridge project the week after the verdict. The renovation was on schedule. The federal contract remained intact. He parked his Audi on the same street where he had been stopped, walked past the spot where he had stood for 31 minutes with his hands visible, and went to work. He gave one interview. It was brief. He said that he had never wanted to be at the center of anything. He said that he had simply been going to work. He said that the only reason any of it had mattered was because someone had been paying attention and had kept a phone steady for 22 minutes on a quiet Tuesday morning. He thanked Patricia O'Say by name. He did not say anything about Sergeant Dale Corbin. He did not have to. A federal court, a jury of 12, and a judge with 30 years on the bench had already said everything that needed to be said, in 63 pages and $9.4 million, in language so precise and so final that no statement from any news cycle, no departmental spin, and no after-the-fact justification would ever be sufficient to unwrite it. Justice, when it finally arrives, does not need narration. It just needs to be witnessed. If this story stayed with you, drop a comment below and let us know what you think should happen to officers who ignore their own department's records. And if you believe accountability matters, subscribe. We cover the cases that don't go away.